I sat in my parents' living room, a space that had once been a stage for family laughter and gospel music, drifting from old speakers now overtaken by the quiet thrum of dread. We are a Black family, long practiced at carrying hardship with dignity, but the coffee table betrayed us with a sprawl of photocopied medical slips, insurance cards, and a letter with a blurred hospital logo. My mother, Marjorie Winters, wore grief as neatly as her pressed blouse, her voice pitched to tremble in all the right places as she explained that my brother Edward needed a kidney transplant. Dialysis was failing, she said, and some revolutionary clinic in Guatemala could save him if a family donor acted quickly. Edward sat folded in the recliner, silent, looking more tired than sick. My name is Greta, and as an accountant, my whole life has been built around trusting the numbers to tell the truth. These numbers whispered wrong. The letterhead bled like it came off a cheap printer. The doctor's credentials dissolved in every directory I searched. The hospital name produced no website, no reviews, no trace. I nodded slowly, promised to think, and drove home through dusk, with my chest bound tight. Memory rode shotgun as I drove. Edward teaching me to throw a baseball in the yard, shouting encouragement as I missed and missed until I didn't. Edward borrowing $20 that turned into $50, then $100, then rent money. Our mother defending him with a refrain, family helps family. Now family was asking for my body, and I had learned to tell the difference between sacrifice and surrender. At my apartment, where order reigned, binders labeled books arranged by subject shelves dusted, I stood at the window and whispered the promise I would cling to. I need to be certain. The next morning at Pearson Financial, Rachel, a colleague with a laugh like church on Sunday and a spine made of steel, noticed the shadows under my eyes. I told her in low tones about my brother's supposed kidney failure about Guatemala. She didn't flinch. Her cousin had donated a kidney last year, she said. The process had been rigorous and slow, filled with evaluations and safeguards that couldn't be bypassed by throwing money at a foreign clinic. Verify everything she told me. This isn't like loaning money. This is your body. Her words rang like a bell, steadying me. That night, I spread the documents on my dining table like cards and began dealing with the facts. The Guatemalan Association of Nephrology Specialists didn't exist. The Hospital Internacional de Especialidades Renales existed only on paper. I pulled up bank records and saw a sickening pattern. Every reported medical crisis aligned with a transfer from me, and those transfers trailed Edward's casino trips by mere days. I called our family's health insurance provider with his policy number. They had no records of dialysis, no nephrology claims, only a routine physical in February. Silence filled my kitchen after I hung up, but inside I felt something steadier than fear clarity. Searching old emails, I found the message I wasn't supposed to see. My mother to Edward, Greta always comes through. Just tell her it's for medical bills again. She never asks too many questions. The words burned holes in the screen. I built a spreadsheet, the only weapon I trusted, lining up dates, amounts, screenshots, his gambling posts. A thread on his social media mentioned owing $75,000 to a man named Marco, deadline in 3 weeks. The next text from my mother pressed for my passport details and blood type. Meanwhile, Edward posted a selfie at a sports bar, beer in hand. Kidney failure does not smile from behind a frosted glass. I packed my evidence into a folder, steadied my breath, and felt resolve taking shape. They had mistaken love for compliance. They had mistaken me. Sunday dinner smelled like lemon polish and fried chicken when I carried in a casserole, but the food was camouflage. I borrowed my mother's iPad under the excuse of checking work emails. Her password was my birthday. Inside her inbox, truth lay scattered like broken glass. A message from Coordinator Martinez outlined a payment schedule for kidney procurement. Terms like extraction and no recourse after procedure revealed this wasn't medicine, but commerce. An attached contract promised $75,000 upon successful surgery, the exact amount Edward owed his creditors. Another email chilled me more. Greta is dutiful. Tell her Edward will die, and she'll sign whatever we need. I photographed everything, then smoothed my face back into dutiful daughter shape before returning to the table. I served casserole with extra salt, watched Edward eat and drink beer without hesitation. End-stage kidney disease patients can't do that. When I asked about medications, he couldn't name them. When I asked about dialysis, he named a clinic on a street closed for months. I pressed harder until he slammed his fork down and called me nosy. I told him and my mother I knew what they were planning. My mother cried. Edward seethed. I stood firm. That night I drove straight to Memorial Hospital and met Dr. Patricia Vance, a black nephrologist, whose calm carried the authority of truth. She studied the documents and told me plainly fabricated. The terminology was wrong, the protocols nonsense. This wasn't medicine. This was trafficking. Rachel met me there, and her hand on my shoulder reminded me that family could also mean protection, not exploitation. Dr. Vance promised an official statement. At the police station, Detective Cooper reviewed my evidence with eyes that missed nothing. He called it by its legal name, human trafficking conspiracy, attempted harm. He warned me the pressure would escalate. He taught me how to record conversations, how to stall without revealing suspicion, how to let them incriminate themselves. At home, I expanded my spreadsheet into a timeline of betrayal, transactions, calls, messages, all linked. Dr. Vance sent her formal analysis. Rachel dug into wire transfers. My mother texted again, pressing harder for my passport. I bought time sending neutral replies. Then the timeline accelerated. My mother called saying tickets were already purchased one way to Guatemala, leaving in days. Panic flickered under her voice. I called Cooper, who expedited warrants. The FBI's Human Trafficking Division joined in. They told me to keep playing along while they built the case. I nodded. Patience had become my weapon. The night before the planned departure, pounding shook my apartment door. Edward and my mother pushed an urgency carved into their faces. They demanded my passport, waved wrinkled consent forms, and pressed a flight leaving at midnight. Edward grabbed my arm hard enough to leave bruises. My mother hissed about sacrifices and family loyalty. I stalled, claiming the passport was locked in a safe. While Edward hovered, I sent a coded emergency text to Cooper, read kidney now. Sirens arrived, like salvation. Officers burst through the door, Cooper in the lead with the FBI close behind. Edward tried to flee toward the window, but was tackled. My mother wailed, insisting this was about saving her son. Cooper read her the charges. Agent Morales called it what it was: organ trafficking. Dr. Vance arrived moments later with Edward's real medical records, proving his kidneys were perfectly healthy. Edward cursed, admitted too much, and was dragged away in cuffs. My mother followed, still claiming it was love. I told her love doesn't sell someone's organs to pay gambling debts. At the police station, Cooper explained the scope of the case. My evidence tied my mother and brother to a known organ broker, Miguel Ferrero, who operated through desperate families across Central America. My file of emails, contracts, and bank statements became the key to dismantling his network. The FBI soon arrested Ferrero at the airport, and investigators identified other potential victims. Relief hit me so hard I had to grip the table. It hadn't been just about me. I had stopped this from happening to others. In court, bail was denied. The charges included fraud, conspiracy, attempted trafficking, and solicitation. Watching my mother and brother stand before the judge, I felt no victory, only the sharp edge of grief for the family I thought I had. Yet Rachel reminded me, family is also the people who protect you, not the ones who sell you. I moved into a new apartment across town, furnished it slowly, and installed a security system. Dr. Vance connected me with a support group for trafficking survivors. I learned my meticulous documentation, the habit my family had mocked as obsessive, had been the very thing that saved me. Reporters called me a whistleblower. I never sought the spotlight, but I accepted interviews to raise awareness. Months passed. I spoke at a medical ethics conference about how trafficking thrives in the shadows of family obligation. The most dangerous predators, I said, aren't strangers, but those who know which emotional buttons to push. The audience listened as if seeing through a new lens. Invitations followed to advise hospital programs to volunteer with donor education to help identify fraud in my own workplace. When I returned to court to watch another hearing, Cooper told me my evidence had saved 3 other women from being coerced into surgeries. My chest tightened with both horror and gratitude. I realized that what began as survival had become something larger, a responsibility, but also a calling. A year later, I stood at a podium at the launch of the Greta Reynolds Foundation, surrounded by survivors, doctors, and advocates. We pledged to educate families, identify warning signs, and push for stronger laws. We had already saved 12 potential victims from coercion. Dr. Vance sat in the front row beaming. Rachel managed the logistics with her usual steady humor. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt pride untethered from pain. In my work at Pearson Financial, I was promoted to senior analyst using my skills to trace fraudulent transfers and protect clients. My fussiness, once mocked, was now praised as diligence. On my desk sat a hotline phone for the Organ Trafficking Awareness Network. The calls came weekly, people pressured by family, unsure if the diagnoses were real. I answered each one with calm certainty, guiding them to resources and authorities, telling them what I had once needed to hear. Real family protects you, not exploits you. When a young woman named Diane told me her relatives were pushing her to travel to Mexico for her brother's supposed surgery, I recognized the script instantly. I connected her to Cooper. She cried with relief. In her voice, I heard the echo of my own fear and the new resonance of my hard-earned strength. Driving home from the foundation launch, I passed the freeway exit that once led to my parents' house. I felt no urge to turn, no guilt. I carried instead a purpose to turn betrayal into protection for others. I understood now that sometimes the most loving act is refusing to be used. If you've walked with me through this story, remember this. You are not obligated to surrender yourself to people who call exploitation love. Boundaries can be protection, and truth is the deepest form of care. Thank you for staying until the end. Please like this video, share it to protect others, subscribe for more stories of resilience, and comment your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your reflections. End.